Social life. Out of all the topics we're going to cover, this is probably one of the most important. Because unfortunately, if you get caught up in a situation that we're going to mention, it can have a negative impact on your life indefinitely. It happens every semester. Every semester. A student comes into our office and they have a sad story to share because of a decision they made. So, please pay attention and listen accordingly. Like some items you buy, they have a disclaimer. This is my disclaimer when it comes to college. You have to be careful, you have to pay attention. You're going to learn inside the classroom, that's why you're there, but also you're going to learn outside of the classroom. And in most cases, the true lessons come outside of the classroom. But it's how you handle those situations. Let's say you're in a relationship, or you're working 25 hours a week, or you're having roommate issues, or you're running out of money. Life is going to happen while you're in college for most students. But the question is, how will you handle those situations? You have to keep that in mind. So, let's get started. In this lesson, we're going to talk about relationships, drinking, sexual behavior, drugs, and sexually transmitted diseases. Most students choose to engage in many of the aforementioned. Not all, but the majority. And you'll be naive to think that these things aren't going on your campus. Because in most cases, they are. At least once or twice a semester, I have students coming in and they're telling me about at least 1, 2, and 3, and occasionally 4 and 5. And the reason why they don't talk about 4 and 5 that much is because they're embarrassed. But it does happen. And there are statistics to prove that these things are occurring on college campuses. So it's a Monday morning, and some of my regulars, they tend to come in to tell me about their weekend or to give me the latest gossip that's going on campus. And through these conversations that I would have, I kind of noticed that there was different types of relationships on campus. The first was the high school sweethearts. These are the individuals that dated in high school and now they're still dating while at college. Sometimes it's long distance, other times it's not. Both individuals got accepted to the university, so they're here. Then you have the fling. With apps like Plenty of Fish or Tinder, the fling is very common. It's when you have a casual sexual relationship with no real commitment. So with social media, it's very easy to develop relationships with people in your city or on your campus, and a lot of times it leads to a casual sexual relationship. A lot of my students tend to have flings, and they're okay with it, male and female, because they're both looking for the same thing, with no commitment. Next, you have the hookups, and these are always weird when I hear stories about the hookups. These are just random sexual encounters. To me, I just don't understand how people do it, but the hookups are very common, especially after a night out where there was drinking. People will randomly hook up with people that they see, and that's pretty much it, So, very common, don't understand it too much, but maybe it's because I'm older, I don't know. Then you have the cute couple. You have the couple that everyone kind of aspires to be. They're beautiful, they're always together, they get along, and everything is happy and blissful. Finally, you have the long-distance couple, and that's the individuals that they're not really talking to anyone else because they're in a relationship, but it's long distance. So a lot of times, my students are single, and they end up getting involved in 2 and sometimes 3, the fling and the hookups. And a lot of times, this concerns me because I care about my students, and I don't want anything to happen to them or for them to develop a reputation. So that's the speech that I give them. Be cautious, be careful. You don't want to develop a reputation. And a lot of times with the fling and the hookup, it leads to pictures and sexting. And I tell my students to be mindful. If you're going to be a professional, eventually doctor, lawyer, dentist, whatever, you don't want your pictures floating around. So be cautious, especially with Snapchat where a picture can be sent and deleted. I still advise my students to be cautious because you never know. So these are the relationships that are prevalent on college campuses. Next, we're going to talk about sexual behavior. And I'm going to talk about the data, a little bit of statistics, just to give you guys an idea of what's going on college campuses. In no way am I trying to scare or intimidate anyone, but I think it's very important to be privy to what's going on at your potential new home. Std Statistics. For the life of me, I don't understand why students choose not to use condoms. Well, I do understand, but in this situation, knowing that diseases are out there, I don't understand why college students opt not to use condoms. Unfortunately, there's a lot of diseases going around on campus. Chlamydia, HPV, gonorrhea, trichomonas, and syphilis are the most popular on most college campuses. This is across the board. So you have to be mindful of your sexual behavior. Even though you may know the person, you may trust the person, I still would exercise caution if you're choosing to engage in sexual behavior. As you guys already know, the best way to prevent STDs is not to have sex at all. However, if you choose to have sex, I would strongly recommend using a condom to avoid any of the aforementioned issues. On most campuses, they have a clinic. Clinic has free lubrication, condoms, female condoms. They have everything, and it's all free because they're aware of what's going on their campus, and they're trying to reduce it. So if you're engaging in sexual behavior, I strongly recommend to go to your clinic to get the free items. Also, at the clinic, on most universities, they have a section where you can get tested. And in most cases, it's included in your student fees, so it shouldn't cost you additional, depending on the situation, of course. But again, it's another opportunity for you to make sure that you're doing the right thing, make sure that you've been checked, and also you can get the condoms or whatever other preventative measures that are available. But because STDs are very prevalent on college campuses, I would strongly recommend to be mindful, to be careful, and choose your partners carefully. I'll never forget one morning a student walked into my office and you could tell that she was troubled. Something was wrong with her. And she was very reluctant to tell me what was going on. We were close, but her behavior was weird and I knew something was wrong. So, after trying to talk to her and trying to figure out what was going on, she eventually told me what happened the night prior. And the situation was unfortunate. She got a ride home after going out to the club with a friend, somebody she knew, and unfortunately he raped her in the car before he dropped her off. She was afraid. She didn't tell anyone, and the next morning you could just tell that something was wrong. So we ended up going to the police station, filing a report, and the police took care of the matter from that point. But I tell you that to tell you this, that rape is prevalent on college campuses. Look what happened at Florida State and other universities across the country. A lot of times rape goes unreported because the females are embarrassed or afraid. However, it doesn't negate the fact that it's happening. So please keep in mind, females and males. Males, we all heard the saying, no means no. You don't want to ruin your future. You don't want to ruin your potential career, And females, just be mindful of the situations. Try not to put yourself in a situation. So one time before I started class, I asked the question, are drugs an issue on our campus? And keep in mind, this is after I saw 22 Jump Street. So, I wanted to know what was going on. And without a doubt, the majority of the students in the classroom, they said yes. They said students take drugs all the time, especially prescription drugs, but also recreational. Adderall is a big drug found on campuses. Adderall, if you don't know, is a drug that helps students pay attention more. It's really for students that have been diagnosed with ADHD. However, there are individuals on campus that sell Adderall by the pill. So you can get Adderall for $5 a pill on most campuses, as well as other drugs. So I'm not encouraging this behavior, but again, I'm letting you guys know that this is what goes on campuses. So around midterm and final time, a lot of students will be in the library on Adderall. And you have to be mindful because you don't know where the suppliers are getting the drugs from. It could be legit, it really could be Adderall, or it could be something that they made in their home. So you have to be mindful of that. Also, recreational drugs are prevalent on college campuses. Marijuana, ecstasy, but also Molly. A lot of pills, especially for parties, frat parties, a lot of drinking, and a lot of drug consumption. So be mindful of what's going on. Obviously, you guys shouldn't be taking drugs anyway, so this should be a no-brainer. However, the reality of the situation is some of you all will be taking these drugs. And because of that, I have to encourage you to exercise caution. Because one, you don't want to get caught in possession of drugs. That's something else that happens every semester. A student of mine, they get arrested because they were caught with marijuana or other drugs on their body or in their car. And then two, you don't want to ruin your college career or your future career. And that can easily happen if you have a charge or some type of drug-related offense on your record. So it's definitely not worth it. So even though it may be around you, even though you may see it, that's not reason enough to engage. And the cherry on top is alcohol. As you can imagine, alcohol will be on the campus. I went to the University of Florida undergrad, and at the time, it was one of the top party schools in the country. After major football wins or basketball wins, the students would party, literally. At the apartment complex I lived in, after a big game, literally, everyone would open the door, come out, they would play music, the kegs would come out, the liquor would come out, and everyone would party until 3 or 4 in the morning. It was clockwork. And that was all good and well. Everyone had a good time. But you have to be mindful and understand that alcohol will be present on campus. And again, there's a legal issue. If you're not 21 and you're caught with alcohol, once again, that could put a blemish on your record. So you have to be mindful. On top of that, you have to be cautious because if your body can't handle a certain amount of alcohol, then you can get drunk and then you'll be vulnerable or you'll be in a compromising situation. So that could be another issue. Some campuses are dry campuses where they don't allow alcohol at all. Some are wet, meaning they allow alcohol, but under certain conditions or terms. So you have to research and figure out what type of institution or what type of policy does your institution have. Is it a wet policy or a dry policy? But whatever the case, you want to be cautious when it comes to alcohol. Be mindful, if you are going to drink and consume, do so with people that you trust. If not, it could lead down a path that you don't want to go down. I know these are topics you guys probably didn't want to hear about, but I think it's important that you guys are aware about what's going on, and I want you guys to have that knowledge. So I try to keep it short and sweet, and I hope you guys got the point.